learn the ones that you use all of the time. The shortcuts are listed next to the menu items, and we can see that many of the menu items do have keyboard shortcuts, but some of them do not. Just to decipher the keyboard shortcuts, this icon right here is the Command key or the Control key on Windows. The arrow is the Shift key, and this icon is the Option or the Alt key on Windows. But not every command, for example, the Auto Align Layers, has a keyboard shortcut, but we can change that using the Keyboard Shortcut Editor. I'll scroll down and select Keyboard Shortcuts. In fact, we could use a keyboard shortcut to access this. It would be Command Option Shift on Mac or Control Alt Shift on Windows. You can add shortcuts for your application menus, which are the menus across the top, for the panel menus, as well as for your tools. Let's begin with tools. Now you'll notice as I scroll down that almost all of the letters are already taken for the tools, but there are two that are not, and that is the K key and the N key. So let's scroll down, and two of the tools that I use quite often are the brush tool and the mixer brush tool. But you'll notice that they all have the same keyboard shortcut, the B key. Well, I might not want to have to cycle through all of these, so there's two things I could do. I could either delete the shortcut from the tools that I use less often by clicking next to it and just selecting it and tapping the delete key. So if I don't use the pencil tool and I don't use the color replace tool very often, I can go ahead and delete those. But the brush tool and the mixer brush tool still have the same keyboard shortcut. So if I tap the B, it's going to access the tool that I have selected, whether it's brush or mixer brush. But then I would have to use Shift B to cycle through to the next one. Instead, I'm just going to change the mixer brush tool to have the keyboard shortcut of N. Now, if you wanted to select a different letter, for example, T, well, then Photoshop is going to give me a warning that the shortcut T is already in use and it will be removed from the type tools if I accept it here. And that's why I wanted to tell you that both the N key as well as the K key are not used anywhere else, so you don't have to remove them from any other tool. Let's scroll down almost all the way to the bottom here because there are some other additional features that aren't tools that we can assign keyboard shortcuts to. The foreground color picker and the background color picker, for example, I wouldn't necessarily consider them tools even though they actually are in the toolbar. I'll go ahead and click to the right in this area here in order to add the custom keyboard shortcut K in order to bring up the foreground color picker. Now, we can also choose to create new shortcuts for our application menus. So let's choose the Edit menu, and then we'll scroll down until we see that option to Auto Align. As soon as I see Auto Align Layers, there's no shortcut already assigned to it, so I'll click in the blank area to the right, and then I need to just type in the keyboard shortcut that I want. So in this case, let's try Command-Shift-D. Now, Command-Shift-D is already in use, but I don't use this menu command very often, this select and then reselect. So I'm willing to give up the keyboard shortcut from this command in order to apply it to Auto Align Layers. I'll go ahead and click Accept, and that has now reassigned it to this shortcut right here. Finally, you can also add custom keyboard shortcuts to your panel menus. And those are the menus that you see in the upper right of any of the panels that have drop-down menus here. So I could switch, for example, in my brushes panel, I could choose a custom keyboard shortcut to do something like copy the texture to the other tools. Or if I go down into my layers panel, I could assign a keyboard shortcut to automatically flatten my image. So here I'll enter in the keyboard shortcut, maybe Command F in order to flatten it, although that will remove it from the filter last filter if accepted, and I actually use this quite often, so maybe we'll try Command Shift and then F. And since I don't use the Edit Fade command very often, This would be a better keyboard shortcut for me personally, so I'll accept this. Now we can see that once we've modified the Photoshop defaults, it tells us that by adding this modified after the name. Now I would like to save this so that I can use this on my machine at home, and I would like to be able to synchronize these. So I'm going to click on the second icon here, and I will rename this JCost, and I'm going to save it in the default location right here in my keyboard shortcuts, and then click Save. When I click OK, let's go ahead and test some of those keyboard shortcuts. First, I will tap the N key, and we can see that my mixer brush was automatically selected. I can tap the K key, and that brings up the color picker. If I open up multiple images, I could test the Edit and then Auto Align Layers, but since I don't have a document open right now, you'll notice that that's grayed out. However, Photoshop did add the keyboard shortcut right here to the right, just in case I ever forget it and I need to reference it. If you ever want to reset the keyboard shortcuts, all you need to do is come back to the Edit menu, choose Keyboard Shortcuts, and then for Set, I will switch this back to the Photoshop defaults for now, and click OK. So creating custom keyboard shortcuts might seem like sort of a minor thing when you're first starting to learn Photoshop, but as you become more advanced, you're really going to want to access your tools and your menu items more quickly, and customizing your shortcuts is one of the most productive ways that you can do this.